The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. We are live from different locales as usual. I am Barnzy, coming to you from Topeka, Kansas, and joined by the inimitable Stuart Williams from Pflugerville, Georgetown, Austin.
Pflugerville.
Huh?
How we doing?
You're
back home?
Yes, back in the old stomping grounds, as it were.
Sleeping in your old bed?
No, that those days have gone. Mom's moved away from our childhood home, so although it's about the same size, which is different than a king size and multiple mutts. So
yeah.
And leading off, I just read this morning, Nico. This is
wild.
It's kind of a big news. I did not expect this at all. But Team USA does not plan to attend the IBF 2023 World Championships in Kuwait, where the Sheikh has reinstalled himself as president, whether that's to do with it or not. But it's their understanding that several countries will not be participating or have not registered yet, and they are on board. I read the quote from Andrew Anderson, who they had represented, and said that they didn't want to compete in the World Championships where it wasn't going to be adequately represented. So,
on a purely professional bowling standpoint, that sucks for a few of those guys because there's a tournament backing up to it that's paying 30 grand. So, is there having a free trip over there and then being able to bowl for 30 grand on the backside of it would have been quite nice.
Leon has this right. A month ago, Sweden had said that they were out. They were not backing this. And I imagine that means a fair portion of the EU will also.
It's going to be interesting to see the way the Asian countries attack it because Sheikh is in charge of Asia also. But thanks for breaking the news, Nico. Appreciate the super chat, but interesting talking point to get started. Dan says, say hello to your mom. Morning, Jason. What's going on? Regina, hello. Bring some heat for Barnes this morning. That's always good. Frank, good morning. Mark, what's going on? Ticino, good morning. How's everybody doing? You were the first to comment, so good morning. Everybody's doing good. I am getting ready for nationals this week, so we will have a little bit of a chat about that. It's Bowl Expo week, so if you log on to any of the company's Facebook pages, you will see people randomly walking around live, probably not giving you very much useful information, but you'll see a bunch of new balls. That demo is one of the hardest things to do from a player standpoint because most times the companies drill you balls. Most times they get slightly screwed up. Then you go on the lane with a ball you've never seen in a bowling center that whatever, who knows what you're bowling on. And you basically have to say, this ball's amazing. Are they always? One year I had to tell everybody the Hysteria was amazing. Sometimes it tricks you, though. You think it's great there. Then you, like 6 months later, you're like, man, I told all those people this ball was going to be great.
Yeah.
But anyway.
It gets tough when you do it as a one-off. And most of the time at those, there's not as much oil in the lane as you would like, considering that there's going to be at least two from each company that's going to be in the upper high performance range. and they're going to be hook monsters. And there's about 24 mils of oil in the lane because they want to make sure everybody can hook the other balls. And it gets a little tricky. That was often known as the dynamic tour in Japan every year. So, no, kind of fun. It is cool though. You get to see a lot of people. You get to see all the products at the same time. We had Kyle Troup lined up to come on to talk about his tour finals win, but he went cross country from Washington to Orlando yesterday and is doing the demo live right now. So a lot of balls to juggle and too many at the moment.
Okay, we got a few more regulars. Hey, Rebecca, what's going on? Hi, Patty. Chuck Ritchie says, yo, what's going on? The Carn House from Australia. Hello. Can't keep time. It depends. Hey, Regina. Yeah, we're heading out on Saturday. I bowl Sunday, Monday. So hopefully we'll see you there.
I believe her husband and son had a video that they just did here, a little 1v1 thing. So you can drop a line on where we can find that too.
Ben says, always looking forward to the shows. Thank you. That's why we keep doing it. You guys keep coming back.
Frank, there is no evidence that the Weber Cup, because we can't even get a phone call from the person in charge.
I think we've moved on from those days now.
Yeah, I think that's done. But
somebody who watched my latest video, do you breathe in the backswing or the downswing? I was playing against a local kid, and Garrett, and he was trying to get he got a little chirpy. The match was pretty good, back and forth. He said, hey, do you breathe in the downswing or the upswing? And yeah, then I proceeded to mutilate him. So it was what it was. Okay, well, that's good. Glad he's finding some balls he likes. They're three that me and Chris find fairly useful. Certainly Chris on the gem side.
Yeah, I've used the gem a little bit more out of us. The absolute we've both come around on in the from about March on. We found a lot more usefulness for that ball. Used it at nationals, as a matter of fact.
Somebody's decided to call me.
In Regina Bowl Sunday and Monday also.
Oh, goody.
Mark Hendricks asks real quick, could either of you give a simplified explanation of what is meant by pushing the ball into the lane?
No, because I don't know what that means either.
Are you talking about push away? Are you talking about a release? Just clear that up, and we'll try and do our best to clear it up for you.
Cowboy says his summit's being delivered today, and he's so excited. He's excited. Yeah, I would be too. New balls are always fun.
Yes, sir.
3Gs, Bs, thanks for the tip. Appreciate you. It says, morning and thank you for doing the show. Thank you for listening. It appears step 2 isn't available anymore. I'm a big fan of 500,000 step 2. What is a good alternative process? That's a good question, because I don't know, because I didn't know that it wasn't available anymore. Yeah.
We'll check into that, but there wasn't. Yeah, it may be just a delay in getting it out. But yeah, that's news to me as well. So,
interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was just a little Facebook Live that Justin and George did, because they were the 1-2 seed in the step ladder final, which is always cool. And the old man lefty beat up the little kid in the tournament. Yeah, I understand how he feels. So Justin and I have that in common. Actually, Justin and I have a lot in common, because I've been beat by Ryan a lot too. So,
yeah, it appears step 1 and step 3 are still available.
Huh.
On the website. Okay, what I just going quickly back to that question. What I would do if you can't get step 2 in the meantime is I would use step 1 and use a little bit of water with it. I think that will probably make up the difference enough.
If you use a fair amount of water, you'll get to the bigger number on that step 1, which will
Yeah.
put you right in the middle of step 2 if you don't use much water.
Yeah. I think that's the direction I would go. I think that that's still more of a compound rather than getting towards a polish. So that's what I would do. I'd use step 1 and water. So I would still keep the lower number on the bottom, though, like the 1,000, because you'll be tempted to make it shinier by doing like 2,000, but I don't think that'll really work. So anyway, that's the direction I would go. But being as they still have step 1 and step 3, I'm guessing that it's just a supply chain issue with step 2, but I might be wrong. I'll try and find out. It won't be this week though, because nobody's going to answer a question at all with Bowl Expo going on.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. Let's have a quick look. What else were we looking at? Gem was a beast for me. Usually have to move away from it for third game, but it crushes for the first 2. That's kind of what it's designed for.
Yep. It's good on the fresh. It's not a used forever ball. How do we feel about dual patterns?
Not massive fan.
No, I had some success on them, but really, I think it's like a lot of things. I think it's interesting, but I think it's probably played out.
I think the thing with dual pattern is dual pattern was a great idea until everybody used urethane on everything.
Yeah, then it's not really doing 2 different things. It's just doing the same thing.
Yeah, because you just play in the front part of the lane because all of the lane patterns are like 3-1 in the first 20 feet of the lane. So the urethane always looks pretty good on it. So kind of surprised you all weren't in Orlando. Storm have a really big staff, and if you think about it, each staffer being there costs about $2,000, give or take, based on plane flights, food, hotel rooms, and the like. So, maybe it's 1,500, but if you have 10 staffers, that's 15 grand straight away. So, if you think about it like that, and all of the players that Storm have, it gets to be a bit more sensible. We'd both like to go. We both enjoy it. But there's a few people ahead of the queue, certainly for me. And the release I've heard from the description of pushing the ball into the lane at release. I don't really, I'll be honest with you. I've never really heard that terminology. But I think what they're trying to say is to getting the ball down on the lane, like rolling it into the lane. So it's about getting your hand to collapse more rather than push it through the front. Chris is very good at this because if you watch Chris is almost the dictionary definition of really rolling the ball down your hand into the lane. So I believe that's what they're talking about. It's about.
Yeah, you still really want it to go this way. If it's going this way,
but I think that's more of a swing thing. I still think like your hand, like you really like. If I turn sideways, you really do that into the lane, whereas a lot of people, especially amateurs, kind of do that. They like push it, and then the ball skids a lot. So if you play on a lot of oil, that's bad. If you play on a really dry house shot, that's actually good. Yeah. So I think that's what they're talking about. So just really focus on feeling like the ball, like to quote Rick Benoit, like really rolls down your hand.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be good. You think Prater should have switched to reactive? If you're talking about the final, I don't think it matters. When the guy shoots 268, 270, I mean, who cares what balls you throw? Honestly.
Yeah. There's so little room. And if you make a change, you're probably done when the other guy shoots, basically has 1 miss each game. So,
I mean, Kyle really, Kyle is fantastic when he feels comfortable. I mean, he's a great bowler, right? Don't take this the wrong way. I'm just saying he excels when there is when there's a bit of miss room, he is able to create it into a lot of miss room when he feels comfortable, and he felt real comfortable on those shows. I did notice that he'd cut the throw back a little bit though.
Mm-hmm.
That was that seemed to be news. So
yeah, he streamlined it a little bit, needed a little change, he said.
Bought a new inbox phase 2. Pin above the ring, kicked out, and the ball goes 60 feet. Ever heard of a dead ball out the box? No. Sounds like you might need to just well, the first thing, just try and scuff it up a little bit and see what happens. Also, have you had your axis point measured? Like, have you got other balls drilled with that pin above the ring? Because depending on what your axis point is, could cause some strange things as well. So
yeah, take a video. If it's truly odd, then send it in to the powers to be and do a comparison. They'll have another ball go down the lane with it. Drill similarly if possible.
Do that. Send it to tech@stormbowling.com.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Thanks, Frank. How much use have you been getting out the duo? Just got it and been loving it. Being perfectly frank, not very much. I kind of like what I would call stacks that I have with the balls and where I see it. And for me and the way I do it, I just don't really have that much use for that combination. Like, I feel like the cover for me is too strong or too responsive for how weak the weight block is. So like for me, it isn't a blend of the two that kind of fits with the other balls that I like to use. Because that's the other important part. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's a touch cover strong for a medium core, but it's really, I haven't been in a place where I really have to use it yet. I think it's going to be better on the wet dry and those kind of things for me. And the two things we bowled on are on the harder end of what we bowl on the senior tour. And while there's plenty of volume, most of it was down lane. And so it was, it's just not where, on that kind of thing, you want balls that flare a lot. And that one doesn't flare as much. I think it'll be more useful as it goes on, hopefully. But we'll keep you updated.
Glenn says, good morning, gentlemen. Are there any new? Yes, there are. There are 2 of them. You will probably see them in the next couple of hours, I would think, if you keep an eye out on Facebook. We'll try and not get ourselves in any trouble. So we'll just avoid.
They're there. I imagine we can at least see the names of what is coming out for all the brands.
Well, yeah. Well, at the demo, like they'll be up and going, and people will be throwing them. And I imagine that it'll be the Rash and Zavala show for global. So if you see, Sean can't help himself, so he is almost guaranteed to be going live at some point. So
I think probably more than Zavilova with global,
but what I'm saying is she'll be there throwing them.
Oh,
so Sean will probably, I would think.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, there is. I'll sneak. There's another Zen, so that's it. Not talking about it anymore. We've got a couple of super chats. Oh my God, can you break down Lenny Boyce's release and what his ball is doing as it goes down the lane to hit so well? I mean, I feel like that's one of those questions that's like, it's a bit like, where does the devil live? It's hard to,
He has a very short swing, which leaves a very flat release point. His trajectory going the lane is very flat there. He is a little forward at the line, which then increases rotation. He's pretty good at lofting it. And so his ball, it's a unique spot to throw it from, but he does it very well, or he repeats very well. And the short swings don't see a lot of early friction, which allows him to throw pretty strong balls. And the rotation allows it to still have energy in the back of the lane. Combine that with the fact he's pretty good at hitting his target a lot. It's been really good for a long time.
I feel like Lenny, I know this is going to be a strange comparison. If you watch golf, I feel like Lenny is a little bit like John Rahm. John Rahm's swing is really quick and really short, but it's like I think that allows him to be accurate because it doesn't have chance to go everywhere. Whereas having like that really short, like it only goes back a little bit, so it's much harder for him to get out of sync going forwards. So
Tommy DeLute's had a kind of similar game. He was just more upright.
Who did? Sorry?
Tommy DeLute's.
Okay.
Short swing that really cleared the front of the lane good and allowed him to make some pretty big motions down lane. Very efficient package that allowed him to get pull pretty good week to week.
That's what the lady said. A very efficient package.
Well, I can't speak to any of that. So,
do I need Duo, Zen, and Phase 4 all in the bag? I'm throwing the Phase 4 the best right now. Maybe not. I mean, to me, I see the Duo as being really off the Zen, but I also see the Phase 4 being that way. So it really depends. If you're playing on more oil, I could see the Duo being better off the Zen than the Phase 4. What you're basically doing is if you go Zen to Phase 4, you're exactly. If you go in Zen to Phase 4, you're changing the cover. If you go in Zen to Duo, in my eyes, you're really just changing the weight block. So, yeah, I think it depends. If you're more speed dominant, I think going from the Zen to the Duo probably makes more sense. And if you're a little more rev dominant, going from the Zen to the Phase 4 probably makes more sense in my eyes. But David, thank you for the super chat. This is going to be an interesting one. It says, what differences define the front, mid, and back, and how do you see it as ball in the front? This is a very good debate. Like for me, I don't necessarily see the back to be a set distance. It depends on the pattern. So in my eyes, I see it more as Chris is probably going to see the fronts as a shorter distance. I see the fronts to level with like the first set of arrows. So first arrow, that's the front part of the lane as I define it in my mind. Then the middle part of the pattern is from like second arrow all the way to basically just before the end of the pattern. And then the back part of the lane is the dry portion of the lane. So I think most people would see the mid part of the lane to be probably to about 35 feet. I kind of like in my mind, I just see the back part of the lane as the part of the lane that's dry.
past the end of the pattern.
Yeah. And I think that's simpler.
That's a reasonable way to look at it for sure.
In the way I look at it. So I have basically the front part of the lane is to the arrows, did the ball to first arrow, because obviously middle arrow is further down the lane, but basically did the ball try and make too much motion before the first set of arrows? And then if it didn't, then my issue is more in the middle part of the lane and figuring out, whether I need to make it earlier or further. So,
yeah, actually, I think we're probably closer than you think as far as the front part of the lane. I in very generality, just break it up into 3 20-foot segments.
Okay.
But really, I don't ever really want to see my ball hook before the arrows. And the one thing that 2-color balls and grips and all that do is as they see friction, they start to spin up faster. And so when you see that ball start to spin up faster, that's how you know your ball's seeing friction. But yeah, there's not very many times in my life where I went, wow, my ball hooked early. I had the best ball reaction ever. So I'm looking to clear that first 20 feet as often as possible. It's been a bigger struggle in recent years, for a variety of reasons, whether on the regular tour especially. But it seems like their surfaces are getting older again. We're kind of cycling back almost into the wood phase of these older synthetic surfaces. Lane maintenance is not putting a ton of oil. There seems to be a theory that the front, 2, 4, 6 feet don't really matter. And I guess they don't to somebody, but it sure feels like they do to me. So that's a longer answer than you probably need or want, but that's how we see it.
Is there a less effective surface for urethane at USBC Nationals conditions? Thanks. Well, thanks, Walter, your frequent contributor. what we thinking here? I haven't been. Chris has. But from the way people are describing it, it doesn't sound like you want a ton of surface on your urethane balls on the singles and doubles.
I did not re-hit my urethane ball from looking at the amount of friction that was on the lane. It still felt like it hooked plenty early. I would have been okay with even say a fast pitch probably, if something that was a touch cleaner through it. That being said, if you're higher on the ball speed side and you're not worried about the first 10 feet, 500 is kind of the go-to number for most of us on urethane. Mine had gotten a little bit shiny and I let it go and let it kind of be a little bit lane shined. And I thought that was plenty. But that led me to do what I want to do, which is throw it a little slower, grab at it a little more, and make it pick up versus having to shove it down the lane.
Typically, in comparison to other good bowlers, you tend to have your urethanes a little shinier than most people. I think it'd be a reasonable generality. I think that you obviously do hit them sometimes, but what I'm saying is like overall, out of 10 times, I would say that my urethane's probably rougher than yours, at least.
And it plays to skill sets. What you like to do versus what given first choice. I'd rather throw it slower and catch it.
I was about to say, you have the ability to make yours hook. I'm grabbing it for dear life, hoping it'll hook. Because you're able to change how you do it and hit it on the up. And I think that urethane, when you hit it on the up, is a million times better. That's why, from all the research I've done, the reason why I think that someone like myself, or for the longest time, Prather, actually struggle with urethane is because we roll the ball down our hand. And I think that it hits the lane and it's like, bleh. Whereas somebody like Darren Tang and Frankie, I could never understand why they're so much better with urethane than I am when their rev rates are so much lower. And I came to the conclusion, I think it's because they both hit it on the up. And I think that that's better for urethane. So that's my technical for it. I think that the guys who do well with urethane, Christian Azcona is another one. He really hits the ball on the up. And I think that that's good. And you're able to do that, and I'm not.
Urethane is basically opening up the front 30 feet of the lane. Yeah. And reactive is about opening up the back 30 feet of the lane. And so it's just using it where it's best at.
But thanks again, Walter. Appreciate the chat. True House Bowler. Hey guys, from what you've seen, what do you suggest a good practice pattern length volume would be for team and singles and doubles? I don't. What I would do is I would go onto the USBC's website and try and find the patterns from the previous years and find one for singles and doubles. Find the one that's closest to around 38 feet that's kind of flat. And for team, I would find the one that's around probably 42 feet. Would you say that's about fair?
Yeah, I think doubles and singles has probably been flipped from last year.
Right.
And flattened a little bit on both. That would be my take. So the team event from last year is kind of the doubles and singles, maybe a foot shorter, but definitely flatter in the middle. And or from 2 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Because last year, a team wasn't that difficult.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, you bowled a good team, and I did.
No, I was about to say last year, though, the scores overall were pretty big.
Yeah, they were decent. If you go back 2 years back, that's probably fairly close to team and then doubles and singles.
I'm just saying, like, I don't think that Nick uses exactly a massive amount of difference in the patterns. So if you just look, you would agree that singles and doubles is shorter than team.
42 and 38 is probably pretty close. 41, 37. Yeah, something like that. I think there's probably about 4 feet difference. Doubles and singles is very flat. Yeah. Team has some shape to it. Team is not. It's kind of what we've seen the last few years. It's playable. There's a pretty good amount of hook at 5, 6, 7, 8 that you can start there and transition off of, and the lane stays pretty good the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I say, I think that that is going to be, there she is. Okay. We can start talking about balls now. They're on the website. Yeah, I think that is the way I would look at it. So if you can find the last few years team event, I just think that they're always going to be slightly different than what you play at home. So what you're really looking for is, I think, like a medium 42-foot. Like, it's not going to be super high volume, but it's also not going to be like super flat either.
27, 28 mils, 3 to 1 is probably about right. You can find one of those on the USBC site. That makes sense for team. So
yeah.
Wayland, this is actually it's interesting because I've been having conversations with the smartest guys I know, and JJ's one of them, about this, because they turn it off at 8 feet on the reverse, and they say it tapers off, and they say it doesn't, there's still plenty of oil but it doesn't play like there's a ramp up. It's not just at the senior masters, but certainly was obvious again. And it gets easier for me to tell because I get to be the one that's more on the furthest left. And 31 mils on the seniors on Pro-Am lane is a ton of volume for that group. And literally very, very few guys could throw a lot of surface on something they really wanted to, because they were very slick in the body in that mid lane. And so it's some conversations we've had. I think they're doing some tests and kind of see. It's just it's an older theory that they've done for quite a while, and they have proof, at least in history, that there's still plenty of launch pad there, but it's not really playing like it for me, at least. And maybe it's just a me problem. Are either of us really allowed to say anything negative about a Storm product? I think if you watch our reviews, the more qualifiers there are for a product.
Yeah, I mean,
everything is really, it's something Rick Benoit said a long time ago. Every ball is really good on something.
The other part of it is like, if you work for Apple, are you allowed to say anything negative about them? It's not really necessarily productive to say negative things. It's more about showing you where it'll succeed and where it won't succeed, so you have an idea of the product.
Yeah, that's the way we kind of do it. We try and let you know who it would be good for, and you're looking for balls, obviously, that have the biggest windows. Phase twos, well, who's that good for? Well, basically everyone. So yes, a couple of them.
Yeah, I've only thrown the one. I've thrown the Zen Gold label. I think it's pretty angular from what I've seen. Definitely cleaner than the original Zen. Matt and Mango. So much knowledge from the guy in blue. Who is the other clown? I'm Stu. Nice to meet you. Appreciate you $5. If you want to keep calling me a clown, keep paying $5. I appreciate you. Thanks for the urethane advice. Yeah, no problem. Edmund was a disaster. It was very challenging for me. The cross was interesting, but I never really felt like I had a good idea of what I was supposed to do, which is a bit of a problem. On Sunday, I came in and I decided to have a game plan of sort of kind of playing to the right and trying to spin it through the front a little bit like I do at Plano, trying to throw it a little harder. It looked amazing for about 7 minutes of practice, and then all the oil disappeared from that part of the lane, and then I was screwed. In hindsight, I should have probably spent the 7 or 8 minutes of practice trying to figure out how to use my urethane. But it didn't really matter. Like, the things that Frankie and Sean were able to do, Sean Lavery, I just had no prayer of being able to do that consistently. Frankie,
the new yellow one.
Sorry,
did he use the new yellow one?
No, he used reactive basically the whole time. He used the black Venom a decent amount of time. Frankie used pitch black and then phase 2, and Frankie looked back to when he's good. And I think that Frankie excels when there isn't very much oil in the front part of the lane, but there isn't a huge amount of oil down the lane. So he's able to get it through that front part of the lane. The middle part of the lane kind of keeps his ball online, and then his ball looks like it speeds up down lane in a good way. Like it's, you've seen Frankie when he's bowling great.
Right.
His rev rate seems to be like 75% of his rev rate's down the lane.
Yeah, it certainly gets much higher as it gets to the right.
Yeah,
down there.
Mike Scroggins used to be like that as well. Even though his rev rate was really low, it was like 70% of it was in the back 25 feet of the lane. So it actually wasn't as low as it seemed like when he was bowling well, I thought.
Yeah, there was some USBC stuff about kind of how it goes. And Walter's rev rate was only about 100 different than Tommy's at the head pin, even though it started out about 300 different.
Yes. And so that's yes, you did. That's at Chris's end. It could be at my end as well, but I believe it's at Chris's end at the minute.
Yeah, no, we have a teddy here, a gray kitty that barks basically.
Buffalo says Storm allows honesty. I think there's like being honest and then just being idiotic. Saying the ball is shit is probably not conducive to staying on staff. Seriously, thoughts on the Salvino pattern? I think that pattern's actually kind of awkward for me, where I've practiced on it a couple of times. I think that you need a cleaner, smooth ball for that pattern. I think that the big balls burn up too much, and the quick response balls you need them later. I think the Zen phase 2 are pretty good on that Salvino pattern from what I've seen. I was hoping the Clone would be an Alert remake. The Clone is a rotogrip ball. It seems like it's come with a solid cover. I thought it was going to be closer to the Alert with a hybrid cover, but it seems like it's a dull asymmetrical. So, yeah, no problem. To be honest, I have no idea. It's purple is about the only thing I knew. Anthony had some success with it, but to be honest, he could never get hold of the balls, so it was a bit of a disaster.
Make it to Sunday Regional can never be labeled as a disaster. Sincerely, someone hoping there is at least one more regional check somewhere in my future. It's all relative. There was a time when I didn't think I would ever not cash in a regional, so not making the finals, I felt like was a pretty big miss. Over time, that has changed somewhat.
It just I've been bowling really well.
Yeah,
and yeah, that one slowed me down a little. It was a combination of a lot of things. I know I shouldn't do what I did for that tournament. I never do any good by not being there for the practice session or watching some of the search squad before or any of those things. It just never works out great for me. And when you try and double dip, you just shit at both.
I think it's very tricky when you have as many tools as Stu has to not eliminate a few of them on practice day and narrow down. That's really what practice day is eliminating some of the options and what you think the ones that might be in play more so.
And I think that the practice day was actually fairly detrimental to a bunch of the guys actually this time, talking to Frankie and Anthony. Like, they were having a bet with the guys over what the cut would be. And Frankie said he thought it'd be 40 or 50 over. And Frankie's a pretty conservative guy. And Anthony Lavery said he thought the cut was going to be 110 over. And it ended up being 20 or 30 under. Cool. So they obviously thought that they were pretty easy on practice day for those to be the numbers, because we had a pretty good entry. It was like 33 people made the finals. So and for me, it's just more about being engaged with the tournament.
Yeah.
Like mentally, like, hey, I'm here. Like, you get an idea of the surroundings. Like, you're not like all over the place. So yeah.
We've got behind us some questions. I'm going to try and catch up on a few of them real quick. And then,
okay.
And thinking about the RST X2 ball, what are your thoughts on that ball being a senior citizen? I don't know if you're talking about you or me, but I am a fan of that ball. It's clean, cleaner than a lot of the other covers, but still has a pretty big core. So
very popular on the ladies tour.
Yeah. and I've been using it a lot. We used it both at Nationals and both the Senior Masters and U.S. Open. So just spent a couple hours with Baker. He mentioned he had a lot of fun with Stu. Says Stu was not a believer until he was. The Baker box. It's an interesting way to frame something and I think he's having a lot of success teaching people how to try and play for that spot. Stu has thrown the Hustle RIP, I believe.
Yeah, I like it. I'm glad to hear you like it, Regina. I might get one for Tina. I think it's very reminiscent of the Hustle Inc. So
that's a good endorsement.
It's a little stronger than the camo. I felt like the camo was, like, for me, was either like a bullet or it was really responsive because it wasn't strong enough. The wine for me either didn't hook very much or it hooked miles.
Yeah.
Because it was too weak. This is like a happy medium, I think. So
I like the wine, but it needs some friction. 100%.
Yeah, I just, like, for me, it just ended up being that it got there and it kind of was like, bleh. Or there just wasn't enough difference between that and the Revenant for me. Like, I felt like I could manipulate the Revenant better for longer. Like, the Hustle wine was very small window.
Duo, the strongest pearl cover hybrid type ball out there right now. Well, the cover's on the exotic gem, which would make that ball considerably stronger than the Duo.
Yeah. So, if you're talking about symmetrical, I still think the Zen is stronger than the Duo. But
yeah.
And it also depends, like, it's going back to define strong.
Yeah. Where? Yeah.
Yeah.
Depends really needs to be on a t-shirt. I agree.
Yeah. You guys see the Midnight Bowls. Spencer killed it. 2 balls only. Yeah, Spencer Bowl, great. When I saw the pattern, I was fairly confident he was going to destroy everybody. I don't think they did a very smart thing there. They made it a 48-foot short pattern. I mean, the outside wasn't really oiled, and they oiled to 48 feet.
Yeah.
And Spencer is exceptionally good at throwing it very hard up the outside part of the lane. Like, tell me if that's not what he did, but I suspected that that's what he was going to do, and the right-handers weren't going to be able to do that because A, right-handers aren't as good at doing that anyway, and B, the front part of the lane was going to disappear like way faster. So I was a little disappointed reading some of the things. They got 22 entries, I guess, and they didn't. And so they were paying 1 in 8, basically. So when they got 22 entries, like if they got 24, they'd have paid 3 spots. But when they only got 22, instead of, like, just making the spots a little bit less per spot and still paying 3, they only paid 2 per game. So it got kind of spendy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, if you win 1 game and you only get 1,200 back as opposed to 1,500 or whatever, yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Coming straight for you.
He is. Well, and I can tell that he was born, after 1990, because in my era, that's the only place you could hook the ball. You wanted to hook, it had to start early. That's the only place I can make the ball hook. Lots of times. Is forward pitch in the thumb the only way to go for the run? Actually, it's going. The theories are going back the other way again now.
Yeah, I'm a reverse guy now, a little bit.
I was a forward for a long time. I've gone reverse. That seems to be a pretty common thread of people trying to get it off their thumb quicker so they can get the rev rate up as much as possible again. They're not trying to lower it because of the friction on the lane. They're trying to get it up so they can make it hook more down lane to keep up with the 2-handers.
They got less entries because the tour finals were on the same weekend. What? Like 1? Like, who else was going to play? Like 2, maybe? Like, Packy never bowls that. Dom's not going to bowl. Like, you're going to get EJ and maybe Simo. Who else was going to bowl?
Yeah, and those guys don't bring more entries. They scare more people off, generally.
Oh, yeah, but what I'm saying is like, to me, that's still, like, it was only a couple of people. Them putting it on the same weekend as the regional probably didn't help them either. But St. Louis is miles away from. There was just a shitload of tournaments on last weekend. I mean, a lot. I think almost every region had a tournament. So I think that was probably way more to do with it than anything else. Yeah, I know.
There.
I do have a guy making me a sign, so we'll see how that works out.
You say niche when we don't like a ball. Yeah.
I mean, people say that, but there are some balls that are niche that I like. They're just very specific.
Adam, question for both of us. You guys think I should try the Vice It Thumbs? Because I would promote the It's. Stu's going to promote the Switch. But yeah, I do agree that in general that you should use an interchangeable thumb from one of the two brands. If you have more than 3 or 4 balls, I just think it makes a lot of things easier.
Even Frankie's on Team Switch Grip now.
Wow. All right.
Sterner. All of the epoxy guys are changing.
Oh, they've been putting in thumb sleeves for I got old about 20 years ago.
Yeah. I've been. I think I've been using the Switch Grip since basically I was one of the first people who used Switch Grip, so it's been more than a minute for me. I'm sure Mika was before me because he was no doubt trying every single iteration they had of it.
Yeah.
But it was about 2003 the first time I used Switch Grip, 2004 somewhere around there. So it's been more than a minute.
Yeah. Basically making molds was great the first time around because I was going around the world bowling international stuff in the 90s and getting oval thumbs drilled.
Yeah, and there was a time when you still had to carry around molds because just a bunch of places just didn't have the drill bits.
Right. Yeah, and I still keep one in my bag just in case we don't have a way to do this.
Yeah, because basically everybody has 1.25 inch bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're in some of the places, it's just drilling the 1.25 inch is a lot easier. Especially if you don't really care about if it's not a super expensive, if you're just doing ball demos and stuff, I'd almost rather do it because it's just here you go, you can give the ball away and the person can actually just use it. Whereas, you give them a big hole, they've got to find a thumb hole or whatever, and I don't want to give my thumb holes away. So actually, sometimes it's actually easier to just use it.
Yeah.
It's like I've got older, my skin keeps cracking, so now I need to have skin patch all around all the time. It's doing a good job of stopping me from cracking, but at the same time, it is awfully annoying having to.
Yeah.
Joe Pos are the best. It's another option.
That's somebody that hasn't used them very long. They're coming up with their own problems now.
Somebody else is saying Joe Po is very good. I'm going to stick with my guy. They haven't really.
I've been doing it for about 15 years. I went through the weathers of the early struggles that everybody does. Joe Po will have theirs too. I do. They seem to have, like many people, have taken their own take on it and tried to improve it where they can.
About the only piece of advice I'd give anybody who's using interchangeables is whatever you do, don't use the Vice small size. That doesn't work because the balls swell and there isn't as big a gap at the bottom and it's a disaster. I'm talking from experience because Tina was on Vice staff for forever and she had so many balls when we were in Arizona the cores would swell. Where
the smallest one?
Yeah.
1.3/16 one or what?
Yeah, whatever it is. So basically the 1.8 slugs. Whereas with the other ones, because the molly or whatever, is it the molly? Is that what they call it? The thing that goes in the ball?
No, that's not what they call it. But
whatever the piece is that's in the ball, it's the same size on every hole.
Yeah, and there's no space there.
Yes.
In those,
if the ball comes in just a tiny little bit, then you're screwed. But she could have just used 1 1/4 slugs, which is the 5/16, I guess, the one that most people use.
Yeah, like I put 1 1/4 in 1 3/8 sleeves.
Okay.
Hers, we lots of times put 1 1/8 in the 1 1/4 sleeves, which is that 1 5/6, which leaves you enough room. They're tight, but and that's the reason why Vice came up with that system to begin with, was to create space. That was one of the early troubles with Turbo. Turbo figured out solution to that. The more space gives you room for the core to move up and down and still get it out. 1 7/16, obviously there's even more room. So follow it. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
But anyway, that was kind of just that was the only negative we had from it. Because we left Arizona, I started drilling Tina's balls, and I just refused to mess around. I refused to do a course with Cecil on how to drill its. So Tina started using switch grip.
Yeah, it's super hard because.
Well, no, but I had to have an extra drill bit as well. An extra 2 drill bits.
You had to carry 2 big ones with you. Yeah.
Well, no, it's just at home. Like I need the inch because I don't have bits. I just have the bits I need to drill. I don't have a set of bits. So I needed to get a 1/2 inch bit for that piece in the bottom. So it was just.
Yeah. Says the guy that bought four electronic gadgets last week that 2 drill bits was too much for what he does for a living.
Oh,
I like it.
Well, it wasn't what I did for a living.
This question been asked a couple of times. Sorry. Have a Nova. What's the best way to use on a house shot? Shiny. I just don't see it. It's too early and too smooth. Pretty much any other way. I've seen. If you're a higher speed, higher rev rate guy, it can be useful that way. Otherwise, there's a lot of balls that are pretty good.
Well, I'm glad I made your day. Yeah, just quickly about the Nova. One of the weirdest balls I've ever thrown. Like when it's dull, it feels like it's the earliest ball I've ever thrown, but it doesn't hook. Like for me, it felt like it really hit the lane and wanted to hook. And then, like I say, you and Ryan used them kind of shiny. And yeah.
Just used them on wet dry. Yeah. It's the only time I ever had any luck with them.
There you go.
I want, because it's my mold, it has enough intricacies over the time where I work out a little, work it out a little, work out a little. It's a hard thing to repeat off the press. And so I just make molds of my favorite thumb and then put them in the 1 3/8 sleeves. So that I basically have very close to identical thumbs, and you can just do it that way. For me, it's best of both worlds. I have, yes. You have to say niche, though, not niche. Like this clowns do.
Niche is never a word.
Tolson, I had a couple balls drilled. Was at a tournament. Unbeknownst to me, the course swelled. This time of year, that will happen, especially in Colorado there, where it's finally gotten warm. The easiest way I find is to basically take a scraper down the sides, and you overly scrape out the sides. And most of the time, the drill bit is bounced on the way down, so it was tight to begin with. But yeah, it doesn't take much.
SPL found the Supernova to be niche. I just think that the Supernova had bad timing. Like it was going up against, at the time, the proton physics was still in the line, the reality was in the line, and the gem was in the line, and they're just like, they're great pieces. And like, I think if the Supernova had come out at a time when it was competing against, some other different products like pre-reality, I think a lot of people would have used it. I just think that people.
Well,
I think the good.
Yeah, that's niche. Yeah.
I think that the high end, the pros I can't speak for everybody else, but the pros, when we find a ball that fits like the gap that we want in our bags, the replacement has to be significantly better to go to it. It's just the way it is. Like for me, the reality fits in my bag in that spot really well. I just, the next ball is going to have to be significantly better for me to want to replace the reality until I have to.
Yeah.
Because I've got a lot of trust built up with it.
The reality served me really well for a while. Then I found this gem and kind of stumbled onto it. It's hard to replace. It's kind of like the phase 2 thing when there was all those different balls in there. And the Zen was the first one that was significant. It was shiny enough to be different than a phase 2. Then you had all the Helioses and the Cosmos and there's a lot of really good balls, but were any of them better than the one that was before? And that's where it gets hard, because unless it's better, you're not taking a ball that you've had success with.
There's two quick things. Chris, you answered this question. I'm going to try and look up the latest balls. I wanted to focus in on something.
Tip: always keep an IT in your spare balls so you're not slowing them down the pace of league or in tournaments. My thumb that's in my spare ball always stays in my spare ball. And
I don't use a interchangeable in my spare ball.
And yeah, I used to have some issues with them breaking. I do a couple of things now. Actually, I still have an interchangeable. I used to just use plug. I would put the interchangeable in, lock it in, put some plug in first, and then lock it in before it's set. And then it was solid. Now I actually drill them. I pull it down just a little bit harder so they sit a little below the surface, so that the thumb doesn't take as much direct impact from hitting a pin or the pick cushion all the time. And I actually haven't any trouble for a little while.
So here's the new Roto Grip ball, the Tour Dynamics. This is screaming. Chris hasn't seen the numbers on this yet, but this is screaming, Chris. This ball.
I saw the email this morning, 248026.
Yeah.
No, that's a different one. I'm sorry. No,
I'm so confused. They put up the wrong numbers here.
Yeah, that's not the right numbers. That's a different core. At least from the email I saw this morning.
Let's see if I load this. Well, that's not any use. Interesting. Let's see. I'll load the shelf talker a second. Yeah. Okay. Let me stop this. I'll text
15 pound 247 026 010.
Yeah, I was about to say.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
So can I
make that bigger?
Yeah, I'm about to.
Okay. Good advice. Always coming in from the top rope. If you don't want your core to swell, drink less beer.
So yeah, so then we've got 247 026 010. Man, this is going to take me more than a minute to think about how I want to drill this.
Yeah, I'm not really a big asymmetrical on the small core guy. We've thought that.
To be honest, though,
but
010 is really
010 is basically the number we used to say. If it's not over 010, it doesn't really even matter.
Yeah,
you can move it wherever you want it. The mass bias won't matter too much, no matter what they do. So
this is definitely going to be the one that people are either going to love it or they're going to detest it.
Like, yeah, it may be a big it depends ball.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Someone says, "Is this the Rubicon core?" I guess it's like a Tour version of the Rubicon core because that's what the Rondor Tour, because it says Rondor Tour core. So yeah, it's the same idea. Basically, the Rubicon core and the Insight core were their attempt to create a symmetrical ball that had a balance hole in them. If that kind of makes sense. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if a urethane rule does come into play. These kind of balls may become very popular once again.
so that was that one. The clone turns out it's shiny. It's a shiny solid. So like I say, it's solid Optitrax, whatever that means. It looks like the UFO Alert core, but it's like slightly different numbers. But yeah, I need to text Schlemmer and tell him that the website numbers are wrong. Let me do that.
Regina, do they crack on you? Geo does that with his thumbs, and sometimes they crack, which sometimes it happened on one of his favorite thumbs. That thumb was about 10 years old, also. So yes, plug will eventually crack. I am fairly lucky because I have thumbs both ways that I've made at home with the hybrid, the CS hybrid plug, which I think is pretty good. That holds up pretty well. Some of the other quick plugs are more brittle for sure. When I have time, and I've had some made out of urethane, which they will do for me on occasion. I believe Turbo now offers that as well, where they make it out of the slug material, which then is considerably sturdier and lasts longer, I believe. So,
no. Do you use the Paddock app to lay balls out? Nope.
I'm not aware of it. So
I was about to say, if they want to pay the show, we can say we use it.
I've never heard of it. So
only joking. I wouldn't promote something I didn't use. So
right.
But yeah, no, I don't use it. I would think for me, it's going to be the exact opposite of that. I would think that it would be a good fresh ball before the carry down has happened.
Yeah, a short pattern ball where I get to play the right, or something that's pretty flat, like the Masters used to be before this past year, where it's a lighter volume, have to kind of keep it in the track versus play big left to right at the track, keep it in front of you until once the urethane carry down gets down there, that ball won't hook. So
yes, they are. And the Obsession Tour didn't get a massive amount of use on the PBA Tour, but it seemed like that cover was quite clean. So I would imagine for this ball to be useful, the cover is going to have to be pretty strong. But who knows? I've looked at plenty of balls in my life.
Yeah. Some of them seem like great ideas that don't end up being that. And some of them you drill and you go, this is going to be awful, and turn out to be fantastic. So you never really know. Let's see, going through some of the more questions. How do you guys make practice warm-ups more valuable? I see using Admiral on between every shot. I'm much more of I get my lineup set and have balls that are off each other. And so if the ball with 1,000 on it's not strong enough, then I just go to the one that's 500. I don't try and make the one that's at 1,000 500. So then when there's a little transition, I don't have a ball in that space anymore. I've made that mistake enough over the years that I do not do that anymore. So, Ben, I heard you were consulted about core cover presences when you joined Global. Any truth to that? Yes. When I first moved over there, I was very involved. I loved being a part of the process. I learned a ton about it. Unfortunately, you don't learn a lot always by being right. You basically have to make mistakes to get smarter. But since it's moved to Utah, no, I'm not nearly as involved on any of that now. They have guys that have been pretty good at it for a long time, and the balls have seem to be pretty good in general. So we do have less releases than some of the other manufacturers, but the flip side of that is a lot of them have been very good.
Yeah.
So hard to complain. So, well, we're sneaking up over on an hour here. So,
just quickly texted with Sean Ryan, because he said to me, I guess he's quickly watching a little bit. He said, He said, yeah, it says it's 052 on the website. And I said, well, it doesn't say that on the shelf talkers. And the email we got this morning says 025. And he's like, God damn it. And then I said, I think that I think that I'd prefer it to be 052. And Sean wrote back to me, I wouldn't.
Yeah. Stu, when are you uploading the next Pro Shop versus Stu match, and will Chris be bowling Pro Shop employees?
Maybe.
I have a Storm staffer here local. I could bowl Pro Shop match if you wanted to see Big Josh in a match.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even really doing it for Storm balls. I'm going to bowl one of the guys from the front desk this week. There's a guy, a motive staffer, who was in the Pro Shop. I'm working my way through the Pro Shop, so I've got a motive staffer and a Brunswick staffer still left. So this is the one that they all want, because I'm getting the same requests. I want to see a Chris versus Linda match. I'm sure we can find a way to do that.
Seems like there's a few balls out there now. I just got to get her on the list so I can get some of the new balls. I mentioned
it doesn't even have to be a new ball.
True.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should do. Maybe you should have to use a new ball. She could use whatever she wants.
Yeah, and if anybody thinks throwing the new ball is always an advantage, somebody watch EJ throwing that yellow one on the qualifying the other day.
Yeah,
he got to find out real quick it wasn't what he was hoping. So, you mentioned using a 2-inch pin recently. How do you determine that as opposed to urethane? Mostly, if I want to be able to throw it harder than throwing a 2-inch reactive, is if I need to knock them over with speed versus needing to open up the front part of the lane versus just controlling the back part of the lane. That's largely where that comes in.
Real quick, somebody just asked about the boa and whether they'd had any issues with it. I've not had any issues with it, but if you do have issues with it, the shoes are like basically foolproof guaranteed by boa, so they can. I've actually watched Ronnie change, like, I think it's like the dial or whatever that's the thing that has an issue, and like they can change that out. So not promoting them, just saying that I didn't have any issues when I used them.
Yeah.
Somebody had asked about it breaking earlier. That was all.
Stu just said he looked at plenty of balls in his life. Anyone else catch that?
What's your point?
Yeah, he's going to go. Well, no, never mind. We're going to skip that one. So, but yeah.
He says, bring it, Barnes.
Back to second. Now I'm going back to third. So, Marcus, thanks for the super chat. Good afternoon, guys. Can you talk about your points of targeting? Do you have a set angle you start with, or do you just adjust to what the lane is giving you at different houses, house or pro shot?
You want to start?
Yeah, it goes a little bit into the Baker box thing he's talking about. But if you have those targeting, strips down the lane, 90% of what you're going to bowl on, unless it's on a very short pattern or a very long one, you're going to go just around the right side of that furthest right strip. And so that's the second targeting and an easier one to pinpoint when those are available. And then I move my eyes back to the arrows to where I'm standing and double spot that way. And that keeps my alignment better. Used it a lot actually in Colorado, where the front hook, but they were tight. I needed to get it there, get it to that spot was the key spot, no matter where I was playing on the lane. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you're obviously going to, you're going to be looking for where you got the biggest miss. And like, in general, you're going to be looking for hold, but sometimes that hold comes from having angle through the front part of the lane, I think is. So for me, I target much closer to myself, and I kind of like, I'll stand there and kind of like get my body to the angle that I feel like I'm going to visualize the shape I want. And then I'll kind of target the break point and where I know I'm going to be. And then that's kind of how I go from it. So I target around the dots. He said he clipped it. Sure. So yeah, so I tend to target around the dots, which is pretty close to me. Makes it a little bit easier for me to say, I hit my target. This is bullshit that I didn't strike. because my
But
target.
that's largely how we target. It's just for me, I look at the arrows. Some people look sooner than that, but on the arrows, I look at a break point, so to speak, towards the end of the pattern, and then those targeting strips make it much easier to do when those are available. Are taller pins recommended for people who are more so spin it? Generally, not necessarily. Tends to make the ball hook even more down lane, flare even more.
It tends to make them stand up harder. I look at like moving the pin up and down as to how responsive it is to friction. And then kind of, so in layman's terms, if you move the ball left or right, if the pin left or right, so weaker or stronger, that controls, in my eyes, how far down the lane it goes. And if you move it up or down, it's how quickly it responds to the friction and gets forward. So the higher you go, when it hits the friction, it's going to go forward more. The lower you go, when it hits the friction, it's going to take longer to get to its forward motion. And then the longer the pin, the more the ball's going to skid. And the shorter the pin is to 3 3/8. So if it's at 3 3/8, that's where it's going to fly the most and where it's going to pick up the soonest. So that's not 100% foolproof, but that's like, if you think about it a little bit like that, I think it will make the layouts a little bit more simple for you.
Jack and Tom, appreciate the super chat. Funny you mentioned the Insight. Now, that was a ball that didn't hook for me, but my Nova works great. Another weak ASIM that went straight was the Rubicon, 375, 17 miles an hour, 8-degree tilt. Nuts.
Yeah, I think that the Rubicon and the Insight were almost the same ball. They were very similar. The Rubicon had a little bit more of an audience overall. I don't think the colors on the Insight helped it. I don't think it made it super. I preferred both of those balls shiny. And the Rubicon for me, I had a little bit of success with it, but the main success I had with it was down, and I had the mass bias kind of out on the valve, because I just sort of like, they were kind of designing that for when you'd use a balance hole, because that was just after the balance holes disappeared. And for me, the only reason I would ever use a balance hole was when I went down. So yes, Eric. Yeah, I've actually started using it a little bit more, because once I went to 15, I got my hand in a better spot. So my track wasn't so close to the fingers. So it opened up a few more layout options for me. In general, I don't like pin down balls on symmetrical balls. The asymmetrical balls work a little bit better for me doing that. So I carried around for the majority of the season. Sean Ryan was banging the drum for long enough. I had a reality check, a reality strike, and I had the absolute both pinned down. I have a reality pin down as well, but I don't really get that much use out of that one. It's very short window.
Yeah, it's pretty slow already.
But when I use the Summit, I just felt like I could see the issue that I have sometimes with the pin-up balls later on in the tournaments, where it really migrated to going forward very quickly for me. And I felt like I had another one. I got 2 of those, and I just felt like I'd just try the pin down. And to me, it was great. Like the pin down Summit is better for me than the up one. The up one's going to need a ton more oil to be able to use it. So that's why I did it. There was this is one that the rule of 31 doesn't come into effect at all, to be honest, basically anymore. But with how strong the balls are now, and with how much people use urethane, that kind of totally screws the rule of 31 up. But
it does compromise it.
If you're going to use the rule of 31, to me, for a starting point, I think that you're better taking 3/4 of the number. You know, when you're in those middle patterns. So like for us, if we're bowling on 40 feet, that would be 9. I think if you're thinking about 7, 6 or 7, that's probably closer these days. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Last super chat. Stu, I also target the dots. You talked about setting your shoulder angle. What factors influence your angle to the target?
Well, it depends how much angle I want to play down the lane. So if that's what you mean. So if I feel like, so if we're bowling on a short pattern, for example, I'm gonna have my shoulders really open because like I want to have the ball hook probably around the 35-foot mark. That's where I want it to be its break point. So to get to 35 feet is your break point, unless you're going real straight, you're gonna have to have your angles open. So yeah. So that's basically what influences it, to be honest. The easiest way to open your shoulders, Joe's left-handed. So when you set up, move your left foot back a little bit and it automatically opens your shoulders. Like if you have your 2 feet dead flat next to each other, perfectly aligned, your shoulders are going to be square. As you move back, you're going to open up. It's the easiest way to open your shoulders up. Is to just move that foot back a little bit. Chris starts that way because that's how he feels comfortable. He has the right, I guess it's because you're always trying to keep your right shoulder back a little bit.
I'm trying to preset my angles and then not move and then limit motion from then on is the idea behind it.
But even when you're going straighter, you don't really move that right foot to close your shoulder because I think you have a habit of getting the shoulder rolling a little bit. So you really are like presetting to get your shoulder to stay back.
Keep this back and then keep it back behind my ear and keep it there as long as possible to stop and minimize the miss left.
Sure, go for it. Thanks for the birthday super sticker. It's my birthday tomorrow. So if you're watching this and you want to leave a super thanks, I'll see it as a birthday present. So appreciate you. Check out the last match. We're gonna have some. I had it all planned out, and then I realized that I can't release Zen Gold Label videos until July the 7th. So I may well get another match on this week. Just got to try and get it taped. I go to nationals. Thursday show might be me drilling some balls because Chris is going to be driving. So never really got through to my nationals arsenal. So maybe I'll save that for Thursday. And yeah. Thanks for watching.
And this will be the lead into that. Generally speaking, is the lane friction more or less than South Point? Actually, they replaced the lanes. They're similar age. I would say actually not terribly different. South Point plays pretty tight for a place that has as much play as they have there. But the surface is pretty good in Reno now. So I don't see a lot of difference between the two as far as age. They're both on the newer end of today's environment for sure. All right. Well, we went an hour and 20.
I knew a guy.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be one of those where I get myself in trouble. Like, why did you tell us that was wrong?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because it was.
Stu Bowles this weekend. He's going to give you an update on Thursday. I think we'll be able to do a show on Tuesday. If he's traveling, then I'll handle that.
No, I'll be back.
Okay.
I get back on Monday. We probably won't do one on Tuesday because Tuesday's July 4th.
Well, there you go.
So I don't imagine that there's going to be like a shitload of people who, when they get a day off, are going to dedicate it to watching us. So we might just skip July 4th and go straight to July 6th. And that's the favorite quote for me. What did you do on July 4th? Same as July 5th. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you. Good luck at the LBC. I'll be up there in a couple of weeks. If you want, put an entry in. I strike a little bit in that building, so I'll try and help you out. Mike F says my favorite line, Happy Treason Day. It's Happy Treason Day to Chris, not to me. You're welcome for the language, people.
Yeah. There you go. It's Treason Day if you're back in your own country. Otherwise.
right,
I'll be up at the LBC on the 7th. We're bowling a 50 squad.
Yeah. So if you want to
like to bowl doubles or team with either of us, feel free to sign up and be happy to do that. And
if you're looking for an extra person, I think that EJ Tackett guy is pretty good. So if you want to go me, Chris, and EJ, I think that would be a good option.
He also strikes a fair bit there. Johnny Packy's over there as well.
EJ's probably going to start getting like Pete and being like, I really don't like this place. I've only won twice here.
And Packy's having basically half his career is in that building. So,
yeah. Shh, Chris, they're going to enter with them, not us. Shh.
Oh yeah,
we let you keep the extra U's though. Yeah, you did.
There you go.
All right, guys. It was a fun show.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we will see. Well, Stu will see you Thursday. I'll see you probably the following Thursday, although I may be heading up to Milwaukee. We'll get it figured out. In between now and then, if you would, please support the sponsor, support us. Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Kulik, Bowlers Mart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Ford. You need more information on the Storm bowling products? They are on the Storm webpage, or go to bowlersmart.com to make your orders and pre-orders. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later, guys.